Cam, episode 4, baby. We're back.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back. We have a awesome guest joining us, man. Today is April 30th, 2023, obviously. And we're bringing you guys our first interview. We're super excited about it. Obviously, you guys can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at the Fat Katz Pod. And today, we're joined by a special guest. He's a 6'4", 230-pound inside linebacker, 2-year letterman at NC State, former walk-on who earned a scholarship, Seth Williams. So, Seth, welcome to the show, man.
What's going on? Glad to be on. And it's 6'2". You didn't have to elaborate that much. We're all good. I'm not gonna lie too much today.
Well, I know that you guys have a little bit more history than me and Seth do. So, Ward, kind of paint a picture for us. How did you guys meet, and give us some background information?
Absolutely. And listeners, like we've been saying, we work around the clock. It's a Sunday night at 7 o'clock. We have a crazy interview for you, and we're extremely excited to showcase this. I'm here with we're actually in person, me and my good buddy Seth, sitting here on Seth's couch. But yeah, Cam's in Charlotte, holding down the fort on the western side of the state, and I'm here in Raleigh, holding down the fort on the eastern side of the state. But I'll introduce Seth a little bit. Seth, don't want to take away too much of your thunder, but Seth's been a real good buddy of mine. We've been good friends since we were, about 10 years old, 11 years old. Yeah. Grew up playing sports against each other. I will say this, I used to whoop Seth's ass in football, basketball, baseball, bowling, hockey, the whole nine, man. You name it, I did it. But no, we're extremely excited. I know Seth or Cam pretty much painted a picture for Seth, but Seth's a former walk-on at NC State University here in Raleigh. Came in, didn't have any scholarship offers, and worked his way up to a scholarship at a Power 5 school, has a ton of experience and has a great story. But Seth, how you doing, man? Appreciate you being with us.
Good, man. Good. When I heard the news about y'all starting the podcast, I figured I'd be the first interview, and here we are 2 weeks later. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that's what I told Cam as soon as we started and we were going to introduce the actual interview portion. I said, I know a few good guys, and Seth's the first one that came to mind because, I knew he'd be a great one to talk to. But yeah, Seth, I don't want to steal too much of your thunder, man. I'd love to get into it, ask you a couple of questions. I know you grew up with some very successful brothers in the football world, but love for you to introduce yourself and kind of get in about how you got into playing football.
Yeah, so I am the third youngest out of 4 boys. My dad and uncle both played football. Uncle played in college, and my dad, he didn't end up playing in college. He just played in high school. Well, growing up, 4 brothers, I was the third youngest. It was always, I want to be like them. I want to be like them. Well, we grew up, I got to be 6, 7, 8, playing Little League football. And, I just did what my older brothers did. I didn't, I wouldn't say I didn't love football. It was just like I did what they did, and that happened to be football. And so, I grew up watching my oldest brothers play throughout high school. And then, I got to high school and play or whatever, and didn't end up getting any scholarships, and ended up walking on to NC State and made a pretty good career myself. But yeah, that's kind of like my just quick little background. If Ward wants to ask any specific questions, he can.
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't you were a wasn't your favorite sport baseball growing up? Or was it always football?
That was Blake.
Blake, okay.
So my oldest brother is Hunter. He's 7 years older than me. Next oldest brother is Blake. He's 5 years. Then it's me. And then I have another younger brother who's 5 years younger than me, who's actually one of the top returning linebackers in the state of North Carolina right now. So he's following his brother's footsteps.
You got some studs in the Williams family. Yeah. And I know Seth didn't elaborate on this. I'll kind of talk a little bit about this too. So Seth's oldest brother was an absolute stud at Wake Forest University. He was what, 2-year captain?
Yeah, so my oldest brother, Hunter, I'll give you a little story on him. He, was probably the best linebacker east of, Greensboro back in the early 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
I think his junior year, he had like 220 tackles. And that's no bull right there. And senior year, they came around. Wake Forest High School, or Wake Forest Rosen back then, came around, and I think they had an undefeated season, and they went on to the state championship and got beat 44-0 by Butler, actually.
And Cam went to Butler too.
Yeah. So that would have been 13 years ago.
Yeah, so wouldn't have done it when you were in school, buddy. You wouldn't have beat me and Seth, but maybe when we were kids.
Yeah, they had some ballers on that team. I remember watching them, and man, it was like,
how many didn't your brother have, like, what was it, 19 tackles or something crazy against Butler?
I think he had 16 tackles and he won Defensive Player of the Game.
Insane.
And so, he had a 4.6, 4.7 GPA in high school, and he had opportunities to go play at Harvard, Yale, Brown, Cornell, and then Davidson down in, I think it's in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
And he was about to go to Davidson. Funny story about that. I guess this is a shout out to Davidson. They were on a tour there, and one of the coaches dropped a $10 bill. And he was like, dang, I dropped, which I don't know if this was like a total story or what to get him to come there. But he was like, I bet if we go back, that $10 bill will be sitting right there where I dropped it. And they went back and somebody had put a penny over the $10 bill where exactly he dropped it. And he was like, that's how good of a school this is, like all this and that. Well, anyway, so he was going to go there, and then out of the blue, coach from Wake Forest University calls him, and he goes up there, and they didn't offer him a scholarship, but he had a great GPA and stuff like that, so he got a little bit of financial aid money and went up there and walked on, I guess, in the fall of 2011 after he graduated high school. And so he went up there, and I'm still young, I'm 11, 12 years old, so I don't remember everything, but there's a lot of things he would do. It'd just be like, oh, we're going to see Hunter, and he'd talk about having to walk all the way to Target from his apartment and all this and that. Well, anyway, it was his redshirt sophomore year. He got in against Army. They were playing him up in, I guess, isn't it West Point?
Yeah, West Point.
So he got in up there, and I remember we're sitting around watching the game on our TV, just at home. And next thing you know, he had 8 tackles, 2 forced fumbles that game. And that day after, they brought him in and put him on scholarship. And so, that's kind of how he got his or whatever.
Cool story.
Yeah. So, that's kind of what led him to the walk on to a scholarship guy. Well, anyway, kind of a recap of his career, he ended up being a 2-time team captain. He was preseason All ACC, started linebacker for three years, finalist in the Campbell Award Trophy, which is top academic, top player performance. So he did, and he was also a finalist for the Burlsworth Trophy, which is awarded to the nation's best player who started as a walk-on.
That's awesome.
So,
I didn't know that.
He really did, over his 5 years, he progressed from, bottom of the totem pole to King Tut of Wake Forest University. In his third year, Dave Clawson came on, which is their current coach now. And, they only won 3 games, I think, his last 2 years each season. But they built that foundation of the program they have now. They were ACC runner-ups last year. They put all these guys in the NFL, Sam Hartman, a bunch of guys. But, so he was kind of the foundation to Wake Forest University's success as we came to grow.
That's cool. And I know not to brag on Hunter's success too much. Cam, this is a really cool picture. I don't know how well you can tell, but this is Hunter sacking Jameis crab leg Winston back in the day, back when Jameis Winston was the Heisman Trophy at Florida State, which is I've always thought that's a badass picture. But
he also down in Death Valley, he picked off handsy touchy Deshaun Watson and almost took him. Yeah, almost took him back to the house.
That's awesome.
It was it's kind of a rollout, naked to one side of the field, and they threw like a 13-yard sail route or whatever, and he jumped up out of the air and snagged it. He took it back to like the 3-yard
Did
line.
he really? Guess they
Yeah.
got hawked, man.
Down in Clemson. Well, no, it was they were on the 30-yard line.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like open field.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know Cam too. We have a list of questions we have, to talk to Seth about too, kind of to talk about his experience. I think maybe the best way we could do this is you'll go in, ask a question, Seth will talk, and I'll ask a question. We'll talk about our personal experiences. Does that sound good with you?
Yeah, that's fine with me. The first question that comes to mind, just listening to that, like, you obviously come from a rich football history with a great pedigree. How did that help you, coming up as a kid, and obviously with your brother being a walk-on? How did that help with the experience at NC State?
I mean, honestly, I probably would have never even tried playing, at an ACC school if it wasn't for him. When a walk-on goes, and walks onto a school, especially, he did it blindly. Nobody from around went Wake Forest really. But, he went in there and kind of paved the way for me, kind of gave me a bunch of tips and, little, mental, tips and physical tips. And he gave me a boatload of knowledge to allow me to actually earn a scholarship a year quicker than he did. And, I'm grateful for it. And I would say some of the things, he would tell me, he'd be like, you need to be so good that they have to put you on the field, right? You need to go out there and play every single play like it's your last. They're going to do everything they can as a walk-on, to a walk-on, to not put you on the field and just to use you as a practice dummy. Basically, and this is probably my favorite one. He'd tell me, look, you don't have any friends out there. You're out there to go get paid, to go get a scholarship. Don't go out there and play handsy, touchy-feely on the scout team with the, starters and stuff like that. And, I use that in the first, first year and a half or whatever, man. I'd give those dudes absolute hell.
That sounds makes me want to go run through a wall, man.
Yeah, man.
It's pumped up.
I'd be out there giving them hell every day, and they quit doing that shit, quit doing that. I'm tired. I didn't care. You're on scholarship. I'm not. I got bills to pay. I gotta pay this and that and this. You're here on a free ride. You should be the one, slapping me around, but that's usually not how it is when a scholarship and a walk-on player get together. It's usually the scholarship players are usually your kind of take everything a little bit, for granted versus a walk-on, where, you're there on a chance and, you got to make it.
Yeah. And then I know for you personally, I know this is a really cool story too, that I'm not sure if Cam knows about this in too much detail. I know I do. We grew up together. But Seth, I'd love if you go over, how your recruiting process in high school, the way you were overlooked and all that, and really the way that you ended up at NC State. And I will say to our listeners too, this is a very, very cool story, and I'm just gonna let Seth have it. But yeah, it's very, very interesting story.
Yeah. So our junior year, me and him in the same class, so we went through the ranks together or whatever. Our junior year, we had 71 players on defense. Mm-hmm. I played outside linebacker, and we had an NFL inside linebacker, mm-hmm. Darius Hodge. I mean, he was probably the best player ever to go through Wake Forest. But he was a freak, so all the attention was around him. He got every single tackle or whatever, and I still performed good. I think I had 4 interceptions that year, mm-hmm. a dozen pass breakups.
You're talking about sophomore or junior year? Junior year, okay.
Went to the state championship game at state, had 2 interceptions, 1 defensive player of the game or whatever. Well, junior year, that's when you're supposed to get recruited or whatever. Nothing. Nobody talked to me or whatever, typical, right? Nobody cared to, come see me or whatever. And mm-hmm. So that happened, and, I was like, well, I guess I'll go to camps and, see what happens. Went to camps. Me and him actually went to a few camps together.
A bunch of camps.
Went out there and they just say, hey, what's up? you won a state championship, whatever. So anyway, went into senior season, and the team, I would say, was kind of the group of guys before us left, and I kind of took the reins on the defensive side, and it was kind of my team on the defense, and I believe I had well over 120, 30 tackles, had all the stats or whatever, won every game, won defensive player of the year in the conference over many D1 defensive players, won a state championship, all that good stuff, still nothing. And so I didn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
Our coach had told us, Carolina would give you a walk-on if you wanted it. And it's kind of like, whatever. And then one night, I think it was in February, maybe January, February, me and my parents had went to Chili's in Wake Forest, and which is where we're from. And the recruiting coordinator from state, I had seen him 100 times or whatever, recruiting other guys at our school.
Was it Kitchens you saw?
Yeah, it was Coach Kitchens, yeah. And so we're sitting there eating supper or whatever, and I look over and I'm like, no way. I was like, that's the recruiting coordinator at state or whatever. And so I'm sitting there like talking to my parents or whatever, like, hey, should I go talk to him? Like, yeah, go over and talk to him or whatever. And so I go up to him, and he's up there with his 2 kids or whatever. They're eating whatever, and I'm like, what's up, coach? I don't mean to bother you, but like, I'll go to Wake Forest or whatever, and you think I could come walk on? And he was like, yeah, we're gonna have a visit day or whatever, and a walk on kind of day. He was like, come on out, I'll get your information or whatever. And so that day came around, and they brought us out there, and it was almost like a official visit for a walk on. They took us to a basketball game, and toured the locker room or whatever. And that day when we were at the basketball game, Coach Dorn came up to me and my parents, was like, we'd love to have you on the team, so get with whoever and they'll get you into school, and come be a Wolfpack. So that's kind of how my start to college football started. So
I think out of every story I've heard, that one beats them all. I mean, Cam, I don't know about, when you were getting recruited by state, Cam, did you ever talk to Coach Kitchens or not?
No, my recruiting coordinator was he's with the Steelers now. Eddie Faulkner, I believe, is his name.
Was he there when you were there, or was that before you?
No,
Was he?
He was there for a year and then left and went to the Steelers.
Okay. That's a pretty cool story that you see him in. Did he know, when you went and saw him in Chili's, did he know who you were or not?
I think, I probably had every last thing Wake Forest football state championship on. I think he kind of knew, because, a lot of guys, there were many guys from our area that were going to state. They had a loaded class, that 2018 class. There was multiple guys that, schools right down the road that were, going to state. And I think he might have had an idea who I was. But
and I know for Cam too, it was really, obviously for us, it was very similar. Cam played with a lot of really high level dudes at Butler too. You had what, like 10 teammates go D1 or what is, I know it's some big number, right?
I'd say over my 4 years, probably 20 guys went D1. Probably 4 or 5 guys in the NFL right now. Probably 6 guys in the XFL. So wow. I played with a lot of them. But
that's how it was at Wake Forest. And I know too, I know Seth can speak a lot more highly of it than I can, but I feel like unless you're one of those like 3 or 4 star guys, 5-star guys, and your name is really out there, if you're kind of, if you're a good player, but there's all these great players you play around, you kind of get overlooked. Would you agree with that? Yeah. And I know for Butler and Wake Forest, it was like that.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I mean, and I'll tell my younger brother this all the time. It's what you make of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what a coach from down the road or a coach from wherever. It ain't what he tells you, because they're trained to pet the cat, tell you what you want to hear, and essentially lie to you.
Pet the cat.
soothe you or whatever. But And that's one thing my oldest brother taught me was, it's what you make of it. It's not what they do. It's not how they can help you. It's how you help yourself is gonna, make you notice, make them notice you. So.
Love it. I want to ask you something. Like, as a walk-on, like that first week at state, you get on campus, you get your rooms, you first practice, first walkthrough, first meeting. Like, what's going through your mind? And then I also want to know, like, what was the moment in your head where you're like, yeah, I belong here. Like, I'm not just some walk-on. Like, I belong to be playing at this level.
Well, in this, I'll say it till the day I die. Your mental capability and your mental fitness is so much more important than your physical body. The way you train your mind, your mind is going to make it, you train your subconscious, your conscious follows, right? And so anyway, for my first day, we didn't do anything football, we just kind of moved in or whatever. I knew I was supposed to be there. Now, there's obviously days that, are worse than others and you're out there getting beat around, but, for the most part, I knew I was good enough to be out there. And, that's kind of the attitude I had, want nobody, that much better than me. It's just they got an S next to their name and I had a W,
Who has a price tag on their head, who doesn't?
Exactly. That's just kind of the attitude you have to have. It's a real chip on your shoulder. And, I got called, asshole all the time, for going too hard or anything. I'm serious, scout team. Yeah, but at the end of the day, like I said earlier, you're there for you, not to get him better.
Yeah.
You're there to make yourself better. But you said something about my first day, first meeting or whatever, completely lost. Didn't know what the heck was going on. I mean, we're sitting there with a playbook, I probably have them somewhere in here, a 6-inch thick playbook. And I mean, it's completely different than, hey, go to the ball in high school.
Yeah, cover 4.
one call, one blitz, it's 100 different calls to 100 different formations. It's, you're going to feel like that though, when you first start.
Oh yeah. Was it, Cam, was it like that for you at Charleston?
Oh yeah, dude. I went in, I was hurt when I got there. I'd had complete knee reconstruction and everything. And I had no clue like what was going on. Those plays, man, we ran base and inside zone at Butler. And then everything else was pass protection. So I had no clue. We had to know we had to read coverages, read linebacker. I'd never done any of that stuff, but I feel you on that, man. I felt like I was in a completely different world when I got there.
Oh yeah.
And then I know Seth too, kind of transitioning into this. After you went in and you when you were walk on and you proved yourself, you proved you could play. You started to get playing time. I know. For our listeners, I really encourage you to go check it out. Go look up Seth Williams Scholarship on YouTube, Google, anything. There's a video that went viral, and it was one of at this time. Now the videos are very popular, but during this time there wasn't that many videos out there. And something that was really cool, Coach Dorn came in. It was they had what was it after? It was spring ball, right? When it happened, or was it summer camp? Yeah, you go ahead. I don't want to steal your thunder. You go ahead, hop all the way into it.
So let's see. We redshirted my first year. Every Saturday, they had an away game. I was in the deer woods hunting, whatever. You know how it is. Every chance I could. I'm 30 minutes from home. I was headed back to the house. Even my first summer, staying at school, I'd be at the house more than hanging out.
Oh yeah.
I'd be hanging out with them, or I'd be hanging out with the team. So anyway, redshirted my first year, and then the spring, the first spring I had, they moved me to fullback, and fullback, tight end, kind of a H-back, if you want to call it, blocking back. They moved me there. We had got a new coordinator, whatever, special teams coordinator, and I think they wanted me to get, I'd proved myself to be a worthy, to be on the field. And I think they wanted me to get inclined on the special teams. So they moved me to tight end or whatever. Went out there, halfway, learning the playbook. And I mean, I did okay, but, I don't know, it wasn't for me. And then after that spring, they moved me back to linebacker. And so, I moved back to linebacker, back home with the boys. And let's see, I guess after finals, we have like a 2 or 3 week break from, I guess it's the end of April to about second week in May. And the second week in May, that's when like the first summer session starts or whatever. And so, I'm a walk on and, I wasn't about to stay, out there paying, $600, $700, $800 a month for rent during the summer, just, when I was out there 2 hours a day. So I moved home or whatever and, would drive back and forth from my house to the campus or whatever, the Murphy Center, which is the football field.
It's about a 30-minute drive too. It's not right around the corner.
Yeah, so it's like 22 miles. I've got it down pat. 22 miles, 23 minutes at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I did it plenty of times. So I'd wake up at 4 o'clock, get there. We had workouts that started at 6. I'd be in the locker room getting ready 5:15. And that summer, man, I let them have it, dude. I mean, I ran every sprint faster than anybody, not because I was faster, just because I wanted it. I remember running 110-yard sprints, leaving every other linebacker in the dust, up there running with the DBs. Not because I was fast, just because I knew school was rolling around. I was moving off campus, and I needed money, and I didn't have none. And so I dogged it. That's summer of 19. I'd go to workouts, get done at 10 o'clock, do an online class real quick, then go work with my dad landscaping, until 5, 6 o'clock, and damn 100-degree heat out there dying, and so anyway, we did that, and then August rolls around, fall camp, and they put us up in a hotel, and well, you had an option to stay at a hotel if you wanted to. And so I stayed at the hotel before I moved into my apartment or whatever. And those first few days of camp, you know how it is, dog days.
Oh, yeah.
By about day 4 or 5, you're like, man, I'm tired of looking at you, everybody. And, your body's wore out or whatever. Well, we get, to that first scrimmage and, I'm trying to think I think it was August 10th of 2019. Get to the first scrimmage, it was at 12 o'clock, high noon or whatever. And I remember my mom calling me that morning. She was like, hey, I want to come to your scrimmage. And I'm like, no, don't come. I ain't going to play. I literally told her that. I was like, don't come. Just come after practice and help me. She had all my stuff to move in to my new apartment. And that was going to be after practice because, you have that little 2-hour buffer or whatever, hour buffer after practice. And so we're sitting out there, scrimmaging. And, I'm just walking up and down the sideline. And next thing I know, there was this freshman, they he was on scholarship. They throw him in there, of course, and he's in there, playing with his thumbs, getting his ass whooped, just whatever. So he throws me in there, and I mean it's 100 degrees, and honestly and truthfully, it had been a while. You know how it is. Spring ball really doesn't get you in shape for fall ball. I mean, we're in there, it's 100 degrees, and there, how college plays are. It's, you're sitting there like, oh crap, here we go, 10 seconds, in between each play. And so, they're calling plays. I'm just, all everything I learned just goes out the window or whatever. And it was maybe the 4th or 5th play of the drive. They I was the weak side linebacker on the, they were running a trip set or whatever, Treyo, whatever. And they ran a tight end drag, all the way across the field or whatever, cross country, over route. and it was probably about 8 yards. Well, when you're in a cover 3 defense, that weak side linebacker, usually takes the bender under the tight end, to help that safety out. Well, the quarterback's going through his reads or whatever, and I see the tight end, come running up underneath me. And as the quarterback's like going through his reads, I'm like, okay, this dude is like the only one open. He's definitely about to throw it to him. And this dude that was the tight end, he was a USC Southern Cal transfer. That joker was like 6'7", 250 pounds.
He wore
number 6.
Yeah, he wore number 6 for Trent. I remember him.
And Joker was like this much taller than me. I probably came up to his shoulders. And he threw lobs him the ball or whatever, and he's looking at the quarterback, and I'm 10 yards behind him, coming with a full head of steam. And as soon as he catches that ball and goes to turn his head, I put the fear of God into him and smoke. I smoked him.
Oh yeah.
Hit him right in the ribs, right? And I remember laying on him, and I was so out of breath too. I just laid on him after I hit him, and you can just hear everybody going, everybody's going crazy. I literally just cut this dude in half. His helmet was, up at his forehead, and he was on the ground just, I'm being serious. He was down there moaning, and so I laid on him for a second or two because my tail was out of breath too. Finally, I get up, and I'm just like, what just happened? I just railed this dude. Everybody's going nuts or whatever, and so they, he had to be taken off the field or whatever. I think I knocked the wind out of him. Well, 2 plays later, they, tight end runs a little, stick route, just a little 6 yards and find the soft spot. Bam, pick it off. Take it back. And, I'm really dead.
Should have told your mama to come.
Yeah, exactly. So, we finished practice or whatever. I played, the rest of the scrimmage or whatever. Everybody's just like, dang, I didn't know you were this good. Like, what got into you? Well, anyway, we're sitting there after practice and, we're just going through the normal, you have this and this the rest of the day. And he's like, before we break for practice, where's Seth? And so, I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. And I stand up, man, my heart was about to come up.
So you knew, you had no idea it was coming.
I had no idea until when he said my name, I was like, oh, here we go.
Let's go.
Get it. And, he called my name or whatever, and I'm just sitting there like, oh, didn't know what to do. And he, announces it or whatever. And, next thing I'm just dog piled. And, I'm sitting there like about to half pass out. It's 110 degrees and sweating, and there's 50 dudes on top of me. And, everybody kind of chills out. And then he's like, all right, say a few words. And I'm like, oh. So I'm like, I don't, there's so much going through my mind right now. And all I remember saying, I was probably cussing, like, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
All I remember saying was like, I don't care who you are. I'm going to come out here and I work you every day. Like, that's all I do. And yada, yada, yada. And thank you. And, that's about all. And I was about half blacked out, kind of the emotion, that was going on.
I can only imagine.
And so, from then on, I was on scholarship or whatever. So that was kind of the moment leading up to my scholarship of getting it.
That's awesome, man. That's what stories are made of right there, man. That you can't draw it up any better than that.
I'm being serious. Go check it out on YouTube and Google. It's an awesome video. I'm not just saying that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming timeline wise, right after that is when COVID hit, yeah.
Well, no, we played that season. I played in every game on special teams. I even got in against Clemson and the dog. What do they call it? Garbage time.
Oh yeah. How bad were y'all getting beat by Clemson?
Oh, Trevor Lawrence. Funny story about Trevor Lawrence. It was 2019. They had come up to play us, and I believe that was the year they went to the national championship and lost. But they had just won one, if I'm not mistaken. we're out there warming up or whatever. You know, most teams, like, if you cross the 50-yard line, like, it's onside kind of deal. You know what I mean? Like, when you're out there warming up hours before the game, whatever, it's 50, you know, one team, 50 the other team. This joker comes out of the visiting section or whatever, and everybody's just kind of like, whoa, you know. Yeah, well, yeah, you know, you play against somebody like that, you know, larger than life kind of guy.
Yeah.
Well, this dude, he walks from the visitor locker room straight down the middle of the field, straight over our logo, straight into our 50 yards, all the way to the freaking other goalpost. Turns around, walks back like he was on a Sunday stroll. Just, you know, just kind of sitting there looking around, and nobody's said a word to it. Like, no, we're not about to cross this dude. Well, you know, I think he, you know, had probably 100 yards rushing and 300 passing. But I got to play against him. So
That's awesome.
Pretty cool. And then you're asking about COVID. So 2020, we go into the, you know, winter workouts or whatever, and do that. You know how those winter workouts are, you know, just as bad as summer, if not worse. And then, let's see, we started spring practice the first week of March. And, you know, everybody's having fun, you know. We just came off a 4-8 year, you know, ass all year, you know, and we had a whole new staff, you know, good energy around the team. We had brought some, you know, really good coaches.
We did suck. I remember that.
Yeah, 2019 we went 4-8. We lost every single away game. Every plane ride we went on was just awful on the way back. You know, 1 o'clock in the morning, nobody saying a word. But yeah, so we do the, you know, 2 or 3 practices before spring practice or spring break, and you know, everybody's like, Corona this, Corona that. You know, oh my mama, we gonna cancel this. Like, we ain't doing nothing. You know, we gonna take 2-3 weeks off. Well, you know, it happened, and so, you know, it got canceled. And if I'm not mistaken, it was just like 2 weeks, right, to flatten the curve or whatever. And so, you know, 2 weeks turned into 2 months. And 2 months turned into, you know, we couldn't. I think we started doing stuff in the middle of June, and man, you talk about a pain. It was, you know, you'd walk into the locker room, you'd have to be 6 feet apart. You would get tested 3 times a week. You'd be, you know, what the thermometer.
Every the digital thermometer.
Every single time. I mean, I could go on for days about, you know, some of the crap.
That's for another pod.
I mean, literally, we could sit here and have a 3-hour conversation about that. I mean, it was, you know, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, playing through COVID, you know, we'd be out there, you know, practicing, same fall camp, you know, they'd have these little, it was like little plastic, you know, clear plastic. Plastic.
You had to put on your helmet, or?
Yeah, you put it on like your face mask right here.
I remember that.
On the bottom side of your face mask, and they had it like Velcro to your face mask. Well, that first camp, you know, the first practice, we're out there, and everybody's like ripping them off, and you know, they tried to get you to put a mask on.
You can't breathe, man.
When they try to make you put a mask on when we were taking breaks. So, you know, say you just did an 8-play drive, you know, 110 degrees, you know, tempoed, you'd come off the field and they'd be screaming at you saying, put it up, you know, put your whatever. I mean, that was kind of that. But yeah, long story short, with the COVID stuff, you know, we'd get tested 3 times a week. I remember one time actually, you know, I walked in and it was the same people that would test you every single time, just about. And so, you know, halfway through it, whatever, I, you know, picked the swab up, put it in my nose, I dropped it on the ground, and I looked at the dude and I was like, and I put it in the tube and gave it right back to him, and you know, nothing ever came of it. Yeah, that's a funny story about that, but you know, we get tested hundreds of times. I mean, I got tested hundreds of times.
Oh, I can only imagine.
And you know, the plane. I mean, it didn't make too much of a. We actually ended up driving to most of the games that were within.
Driving.
Yeah, dude, we did. We drove to University of Virginia.
It was like 3 hours.
No, it was 5.
Oh yeah,
That's like above.
screw that. Excuse my language.
Charlottesville. We drove all the way to Virginia. Drove all the way to Virginia Tech, which that wasn't. Well, it was only about 3.5 hours. And then where else did we drove to Winston to play Wave. And
Y'all didn't drive to Clemson that year, did you? Or was that when y'all played Clemson at home?
we didn't play Clemson that year. That was when they changed it. We had 10 games or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And I'm trying to think about. We flew to Syracuse. We flew to Pitt. You talk about cool was playing in the Steelers stadium. Yeah, you go. It was the NFL locker room, the NFL, rules and regulations. I've got pictures on my phone of all the NFL safety this and fines and.
Really?
That was pretty cool.
Cam's a huge Steelers fan, by the way.
Really?
Cam, you been to Heinz Field?
No, I've not.
Well, now it's not even called Heinz Field anymore. They changed. It's some stupid name now.
Acrisure.
Yeah, that's bullshit. But yeah, I know. Cam, did you go to any games during COVID? Like any football games or anything?
Yeah, I watched Seth play the University of Kentucky in Jacksonville. The Gator won.
Speaking of games, I got a pretty cool story. So we were up in Syracuse, and their football field is the Carrier Dome, which is their basketball field, and every other sport, I think, there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think. I think we ended up winning that game right at the last minute. We did. But during the game, it was kind of a back and forth game. They beat us a little bit. We'd beat up on them a little bit. Well, I remember one time we had come off the field or whatever, and I'm sitting there, just drinking a water or something, talking. And I look up and I see some of the coaches start running, and I'm like, what's going on? And then I look up and I see all of our coaches and players in the end zone dancing. And Ricky had scored like Ricky Person scored like a 60-yard touchdown. I didn't even know. There was nobody in the stands. You didn't even know what was going on. And, we had scored a touchdown. So, of course, they're not like, playing music or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, damn, we just scored a touchdown. I had no idea. Most of the time, when the crowd, you can kind of tell what happened, due to the crowd noise.
Yeah.
But that was weird. Syracuse, there was nobody in the stands. Pittsburgh, University of Pitt, whatever, nobody in the stands.
I know that Georgia Tech game that me and Parker went to. Cam, I don't know if I ever told you about this or not. Me and Parker went to the Georgia Tech. Seth got us tickets to the Georgia Tech game. I was home for like Thanksgiving break or fall break or whatever. And anyway, we go to this game. Carter Finley holds 60,000 people. There's maybe 300 people at this game.
No, they had I think it was by the end of the year. I think they had 5,000.
Oh, it was not that when we went.
Wasn't that what it was? Like a 5,000, I think.
There was nobody there. I don't know how many there was when we went.
It was like 10. You can have 10%.
Okay. Well, anyway, I remember there is absolutely nobody at this game, and I'm sitting there drinking beer. We had snuck a bunch of beer in the game, and I'm sitting there. I am 2 rows back from State's bench, drinking beer, and we are hollering at Seth the whole game. And Seth there at the beginning, I could see him as being all serious, and we were beating Georgia Tech by like 28 points, and Seth starts looking back and like making smirks at me and laughing at me. But that just kind of elaborate on Seth's story. That's COVID football for you right there.
It was definitely like definitely something. I tell you what was another crazy thing was Harvard or the Ivy League had canceled their season, and the basketball team I don't know how exactly it happened, but somebody's basketball league like canceled their team and everybody else followed suit. Well, when people thought that the Ivy League had canceled their football season, everybody was like, oh, like we're not playing football this year or whatever. And we would sit there and have arguments with the coaches.
Oh, yeah.
They would like bring us in and sit down, and we would like sit there and they'd be like, all right, like let's talk about like what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. Cam, you'll know this. Who canceled that year? Was it the Pac-12 or the Big Ten that canceled?
They both.
It was the Pac-12. It was both of them at first. The Pac-12 tried to unionize, the players did, and then the Big Ten let 2 games get played and figured out how much money there was.
Because it was Ohio State. Wasn't Ohio State and Michigan going to join the SEC so they could play football that year, or is it just Ohio State?
Just Ohio State. Ohio State ended up making the playoff that year, and they'd only played like 7 games or something like that.
Yeah, dude, that's the thing. They all canceled, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we're losing so much money, we're gonna start playing again."
Yeah, so we sit there, with our coaches and coordinators, and hash it out like what's going to happen. Do you feel safe? All that.
Did you think y'all would play or not?
Yeah, I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't.
Yeah.
You just didn't. Nobody really had an idea.
Yeah.
Because, it was like, well, is the government going to step in and cancel it, or the $500 million or how many billions of dollar TV contracts each league gets? There's no way they'd cancel that.
I know Cam, I know you remember this. Western did something really weird. So the SoCon, the conference the Western plays in, they canceled all their games. So we couldn't play any conference games, but we had 3 out-of-conference games that we were allowed to play in. So during the fall, and they wouldn't let any fans in either. During the fall, we only had 3 games. 2 of them were home games. And the school made absolutely no sense about this. So they wouldn't let fans in the game, but you could tailgate. So there'd be 5,000 students out there just drinking beer, raising hell. Me and Cam were at every single one of them, just raising hell. No, not 6 feet. Yeah, that's what they would say. They would tell us to wear masks. They know kids are drinking beer, and they tell you to wear masks to go to the tailgate. What fucking freaking sense does that make? And, well, anyway, yeah, that was something Western did, but Western had to play. I know y'all didn't do this, or Power 5. I don't think any Power 5 did this. Western played in the spring. Yeah. Cam, you remember that?
I do. That was a fun little treat for us second semester getting the tailgate. Yeah. Oh, Seth, let me ask you this because we're kind of on that timeline. Like I said, I was in Jacksonville watching you play the Wildcats at the Gator Bowl. And you hear this a lot when you talk football with people. Is the SEC really different? Like, are those dudes really better? Are they really more physical, more athletic, or is it just like something we hear?
No, it's true.
So the SEC, I've argued with Cam about this for 4 years now. So the SEC is the whole persona about it's true.
Let me walk that back. You've got, let's see, LSU, Alabama. How many ever your top 8? Georgia, Alabama, LSU. But think about like South Carolina, Tennessee. Maybe not now, but Tennessee in the past years, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky. You have in Arkansas, and who else? Mississippi State, Ole Miss.
A&M.
Well, not A&M.
A&M's top tier. Yeah. Florida, I guess Florida would be top tier too.
So you kind of like the ACC. You got your top 6, 7 teams. But I'll put it this way: the ACC's top 6, 7 teams would get demolished by the SEC's top 6, 7 teams. Other than that, it's probably the same. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's the SEC. Their best 5. You put up against ACC's best 5.
They're kicking our
all day, every day. But other than that, and that's how most conferences are. Just like the Big Ten, you have your I don't even know
Michigan, Ohio State,
Penn State, and then you'll have your Purdue, Michigan State. Sometimes it's the same thing. You'll have your top 4 or 5 schools that are just going to be dominant compared to the other. But I think when we played Kentucky, I thought it was a fairly, maybe not even, but I thought it was a fair. I thought it was a good game. It went right down to the end.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It wasn't a typical beatdown like it usually a SEC versus ACC school is. But there was definitely a size difference, an athletic difference, and just complete difference in what I was used to playing on teams.
When you think about all the different segments of, I want to ask you this. So you have different practices. Obviously, you have spring ball practice, you have winter workouts, you have summer camp, then you have in-season practices. Out of those 4 I just named, which session do you think spring ball or fall camp? Which session of football, like which week long of football, do you think is the hardest part of the season? I know it's kind of an all-around question, but you think it's fall camp or spring ball? What do you
I
think?
would say fall camp because
All the install, yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, it's 7 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night, 26, 27 days of in August. You get 1 day a week for a break.
Mhm.
And over the years it's changed. It
Mhm.
used to be 2-a-days. Like my brother still remembers doing 2-a-days.
Yeah, because I know Western, when I played, you only had 15 practices
Right.
or something like that.
No, it was when I first started. It was 25 practices in 29 days.
Or the spring ball was 15 practices.
Spring ball was
Yeah.
15. But yeah, that I would say fall camp by far. If you do fall camp, you can really do anything. You can do anything.
Cam, what do you think? Would you agree with that? Do you think fall camp's the roughest time?
Fall camp's brutal, not just because of the work. Like the workload is insane, but your life is football for 3 weeks. Like it's wake up, breakfast with the team, first practice, meetings, workout, second practice, walkthrough. I mean, it's always something. From literally like 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. You're with those dudes, and especially when you're a young guy, like you're trying to make your way, you're trying to make a name for yourself. So it's like
about that.
Yeah, I would say
it's not easy.
My first one was the hardest one. After that, I mean, it was tough, but it wasn't nowhere near as bad. I remember the first one, I wasn't playing a lick. And so, you're just sitting there for, last 15 periods of practice after you were just a test dummy, practice dummy. You're sitting there the last 10, 12, 13 periods of practice, just walking up and down, watching them, do, good on good or, ones on twos or whatever. You're sitting there watching them just, holding your shoulder pads like this, getting sunburned.
Yeah, getting sunburned.
And so, and then in meetings, you're not watching any film of you. So, you're literally just, it's like you're a spectator almost, but you got to do everything they're doing. And so that made it like real mentally, like kind of a drag.
Yeah.
But other than that, my second and third one, I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but
You knew what was coming.
You knew what was coming, and it was kind of like, okay, like let's do this. It wasn't, it sucked, but it was fun because you're in it, you're watching film of yourself, you're trying to get better. And so it got better.
Did you guys have a conditioning test when you guys came back every year?
Nah, but you found, they found out. You messed around and found out.
Cam, did y'all have that?
Yeah, Charleston, first day, like you move in first day, everybody's in the dorms. Like there's no off campus anything. Everybody's in the dorms. First day you move in, second day's orientation, third day is a running, like you're running 10 yard, like 100, you're running 10-yard sprints, 10 20s, 10 30s, 10 40s, 10 50s, and then going back.
That's the conditioning test. Workout packet real quick.
Oh yeah. Who got the package and who was doing it at home? You found out real quick.
That's awesome.
And ours, we didn't really do that because we had this first summer session, and that was like a 8-week training program. And you're kind of building up to your second summer session.
Mm-hmm.
And that second summer session, they would lighten the load, but it still wasn't like a light load. But you'd be in shape, but there was nothing like being football shape. You could run 100-yard sprints all day long, but you do that first set of tempo, 6 plays from end to end. I don't care who you are, you're going to be out of breath that, first practice. But yeah, fall camp, it was tough, but at the end of the day, it was football. And that's what really makes college football. Is that month of August. Yeah. Everybody's got the same, 30 days, 31 days, or however many. Yeah. It's what you do in those days, make it count.
I know, speaking of college football too, we had the draft was the past couple of days, and you've played with a ton of guys that even before you got there, when you were there, after you left, you've seen a ton of guys get drafted. What's it been like for you, seeing these guys that you were in fall camp with, you were in spring ball with, you lived with at times? Like, what is it like seeing these dudes get drafted and seeing their dreams come true?
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, a lot of people, I guess you'd say fans of the game, I wouldn't say idolize these people, but you know what I mean. It's like they're on such a
you're like, yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh, man, who are you? I see you all the time, but I'm extremely happy for him, and it's awesome. Being able to sit down on Sunday or whatever, flipping through a game, and just like, I play with him, whatever. But it's not like I'm like, I guess, a fan of his, but you know what I mean? We're more friends than anything. So, when I would see somebody or, it was just kind of like, man, you keep it up or whatever. It wasn't like, worshiping, these players that are in the NFL. And, they're not, most of them aren't like that.
Uh-huh.
Most of the players, if they come back or whatever, they talk to you, they're normal people, just like, everybody else.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that is.
And I know, Cam, I have one more question for Seth, and I'm going to pass it off to you. Seth, I want to know, I know you mentioned Trevor Lawrence earlier, but who else would you say, who's the best player that you played against outside of Trevor Lawrence?
Trying to think of all when you play how many ever years,
Yeah.
you kind of forget who all you played. I played against.
Didn't you play against what was that Boston College running back's name?
Yeah,
AJ Dillon, right?
AJ Dillon. He was a freak. He dragged us.
Yeah. Did you play Cam Akers or not at Florida State? Or was he there before you?
We did play him my first year.
Did you?
Yeah. Played Cam Akers, Sam Howell.
Yeah, Sam Howell's good.
He's a hell of a player. Sam Hartman, hell of a player.
HTTC.
Yeah.
Sam Howell, baby, good Commanders.
Who else do we play? Oh, Texas A&M, my first year. I don't know if there was anybody in particular on that team. Oh, I think Christian Kirk was on that team.
Okay.
God, you talk about it. when I'm talking about SEC, SEC versus ACC, Kentucky, it was kind of a head-to-head. Texas A&M, they drug us, like it won't know tomorrow. It was bad.
Yeah.
I mean, every single play on. I mean, it was like we were playing against the Cowboys or something.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, you play against a lot of people that are pretty successful. Just like played against Jordan Addison.
Oh yeah,
he just got drafted.
Yeah, he played at Pitt. That was Cam. That was his favorite player coming into the draft because he went from Pitt to USC.
Played against, that was when Kenny Pickett was there. He was what, first round?
Yeah, Steelers guy.
Yeah, Steelers or whatever. But it'll come to me.
You're just trying to think people off the top of your head. Cam, can you think of anybody? I was just going
I was sitting here trying to think, and like he said, man, like you go through the years, like
I know you played against so many people, man.
Yeah. Seth, I have a couple more questions, and we'll let you get out of here. But this should have been probably earlier in the interview. But I want to know, and don't say your brother or your dad or your uncle, who was the guy that you looked up at, when you were a young guy, starting to get into football? Who did you want to play like? Who's the guy that you're that would be awesome to play like him one day?
I was pretty young. I watching John Beeson from the Panthers. We'd all sit around. And watch him, and then of course the duo, Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly.
Yeah.
But I never, I was never like, oh my goodness, I want to be just like them. It was kind of like, I'm gonna go play football and I'm gonna be as good as I can. I love watching NFL, but in college or whatever. But I was never kind of like, all about one player. If I had to say, probably Luke Kuechly.
He was a stud.
Just because, he was a Carolina guy, played at Boston College.
ACC guy too, Boston College.
Just a hell of a player overall. And plus, I was a Panthers fan growing up, so.
Yeah, Seth's big Panthers guy.
I wouldn't say big Panthers guy, but that's who you rooted for.
Hey, after last night, Seth has two teammates that plays there now.
Yeah. Just had another guy that got drafted in the 4th round to the Panthers. So.
And if you think of anything you want to talk about, go. This is all about you. Say whatever you want. But I do want to kind of for us and our listeners and anybody, like any state fans or anything, like what's life been like for you after ball? What do you want to accomplish in the future? Like what's next for Seth Williams?
You know, I'm not 100% sure. I work at a building supply company. I was blessed to be able to get a job at, and they've treated me really well. And I'm gonna do that for a little bit, kind of learn tricks of the trade or whatever, and kind of go from there. I'd love to run my own company one day.
Yeah.
Doing whatever. But yeah, I would say, you know, as far as life after football, there's definitely, and I'm sure y'all can attest to this, you know, there's definitely a lack of drive and what's the word? Work ethic and, you know, just the basic football, you know, traits that we've been, you know, all three of us been doing since knee high to a grasshopper or whatever. There's definitely a lack of that.
Knee high to a grasshopper.
You know, there's definitely, I feel like a lack of that in the real life workforce. You know, people are just football will set you out. You know, that's not BS when you hear that. The things you learn in football, the life traits and skills and mentality, it will truly set you apart when you go into the workforce.
Yeah. Well, Seth, I know I can say it's been incredible, brother. You know, it's been a great first interview for sure. You know, I think, and Seth's story too, it's amazing. You know, it's amazing the way he came in as a walk-on, didn't have a price tag on his head, worked his way up at a Power 5 school, no offers, you know, earned a scholarship, played at the highest level. And, you know, I mean, it's hard to beat a story like that and the way he did it too. So, you know, Seth, I know speaking for both me and Cam, really appreciate you coming on, and can't wait to get this out for our viewers. And, you know, Seth, I do want to throw your socials out there too if people want to check you out. What's your Instagram? Seth Williams. Seth Williams 56. Check the boy out, follow him, you know, all that stuff. You know, but it's been you know, check the boys out too. I know Cam mentioned it earlier. We are live on Spotify, YouTube. We're still working on Apple Music. It's been a pain in the ass, but we're getting there. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. You know, Cam does a hell of a job running our socials. He posts some cool content. He clips stuff up. Cam, I'll let you speak on that more than me, but we're extremely excited about this for sure.
Yeah, man. Once again, thanks, Seth, man. This was awesome. You know, we've kind of been, you know, we've had a mutual friend. We kind of know each other, but you know, talking to you, man, like great story. It's awesome. You're an incredible speaker. And again, I just really appreciate you being on the pod. For all of our listeners, we're going to bring you a draft recap. Goodness gracious! Tomorrow on the pod, Fat Katz Pod coming back at
pod.
But once again,
T-shirt's coming soon too.
Thank you again, brother, and I think that's all we've got for the day.
Yeah. What were you saying?
I've got many other stories. You know, that was just kind of a debrief.
Abroad,
yeah. You know, paint.
Oh, you'll get on here again. Don't worry.
We'll have to do it again.
Yeah. But Seth, I appreciate you, brother. Cam, I appreciate you, and our listeners too. Thank you. If you made it this far, I owe you a beer. Hey, the shirts are coming soon. We promise. Me and Cam are still figuring out the details, but and those will be available. Those will be available to all of you too, by the way. But no, we appreciate all the support. Love you all. We'll see you soon.
Peace.